So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this Bell Let's Talk event. We're here to talk about mental health. We're here to talk about mental wellness. And essentially, we are here to remind everyone that's attending, for the parents who are watching, for the players who are watching, we just want to let you know that we are here for you in any way, shape, or form. Your coaches are on. We have some guest speakers today. My name is Tammy. I am going to be your MC for the night. And we really look forward to getting you across some messaging. Shane, are you going to let people in or shall I?
Yep, I got that. When people come in, I'll be letting them in.
All right. So like I mentioned, my name's Tammy. I'm going to be your MC. I am a mental health educator, and essentially this is what I do. I go out into the community and I talk to people about mental health, mental wellness. Tonight, we have a few special guests. Today, we are going to speak to Peter Papadogiannis. Sorry, I butchered that the third time. And we are going to be talking to Allison, Beaumont, and Noah Bickford. So I think we're going to start with Peter. If you want to share your screen, that would be awesome.
Yeah, let me just share my screen here.
I also want to encourage everyone who's on to use the chat function. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, myself, Shane, Cyprian, Rick, we're all going to be watching the chat box and we will try to respond. All right, we have several more people in the wait room. Awesome. Great, so Peter.
Yeah, everyone.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. So
Sure.
what I have here is that you're a PhD you have a PhD in sports psychology. You are a college professor at a university, and you are the co-founder of Headset. So do you want to tell us? I think I want to start with the co-founder of Headset. What is Headset, and what do you do there?
Sure. Yeah, Headset is a sports psychology application that myself and a colleague of mine who's from Toronto but lives in San Diego, his name is Dr. Jason Galea. We were college teammates in hockey at York, both of us, and we both went on to pursue sports psychology and have coached both hockey players, so in hockey, and we needed something like we've created years after our career was over. So Jay and I tell stories. We really appreciate our college coach and all the coaches we have, but we actually named our company after what our coach would in university. He would stop the bus in front of the rink that we played at. He would leave the bus and then he would look at us and go, "It's time to get your headset." And wow. Okay. I really didn't know what he meant, even though I know what he meant. So I would look around and my co-founder, Jay, I would go like, what does he want us to do? Mm-hmm. And no one ever showed us how to get mentally prepared for games, practices, how to cope with, I was a goalie, how to cope with the challenges of my sport. And that what brought me to graduate school and studying this. And I teach this. My background's in clinical psych with a specialty in sports psych. So this is a nice topic for me. And we didn't have a Let's Talk Day years and years ago where it was actually shunned. Like we would not have anyone to go to. And we were left to take on these challenges on our own. And it's a much different and better environment in regards to the mental health piece and mental well-being. So
isn't it great to see though?
Fantastic. And I still think and posted some stuff online today from our company, and it's great to have the conversation. And I'm going to go through a few, and you have resources as well.
Yes.
It's still very planful. I'll be honest, to every athlete, I tell people that if as an athlete at a high competitive level, you have to work on the mental skill, mental well-being piece. It just won't come. It's not a light switch. It takes work, but once you have your recipe, you've done a lot of that great work to be able to kind of fulfill that potential of that you have, because every athlete in soccer and beyond has this potential that we want to reach, but it takes work on the mental side, just like it takes work on the physical and nutrition side.
I like how you mentioned that it doesn't come naturally and it takes some work, because something that I talk about in the workshops that I offer is that, when we're looking at our mental well-being, we have to practice strategies that we learn, well, hopefully that we'll learn throughout our life. And as stress comes and goes, as different challenges come and go, we have to practice different strategies that work for us, because what strategy might work for me might not work for the next person. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, yeah. One question before you move on. What's sport psychology? I'm sure a couple of people are wondering.
There's a couple of things. I often tell people in regards to sports psychology, there is a science piece, which there's research, and there's an applied piece. So I teach at a couple of universities, York University and Wolf Humber. We'll do research. And for me, it's about mental skills training. For me, it's about how do people perform well under pressure. That's a big part for me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll take the research and the learning, and then I'll bring that with athletes. So I work with soccer players, the age of the soccer players beyond college, pro, in Europe, academies, name a sport, and there's someone that I've seen that wants to work on the mental skill to reach their potential. So I work at I'm not there very often because of COVID, but there's 3 sports medicine clinics that I work out of. One's called the Sports Clinic, that's in Mississauga, and then there's 2 in Toronto. One's called Toronto Semi, and the other one is called Athletes Care. And I work out of the one at York at the Track and Field Center. So there's a science part. So we have to learn about athletes and how they progress through their sport mentally. Okay. And then we have the practice piece where people learn how to develop their mental skills. Again, the brain is a muscle, you have to develop it. And as you mentioned, you have to find your recipe to be able to take that on.
Yeah, one thing I also talk about when we're talking about stress in general, sometimes these stressors are actually good for us. Our bodies are built to cope with stress. And there are happy occasions, things that we enjoy that can be stressful, but that stress, maybe for this big game, actually can be something that lights the fire inside of us to do that great job and put our best foot forward. So I want everyone to remember that as well. So listen, I'm going to pass the mic over on to you, and we have some questions already coming in, and we can answer them throughout the presentation.
Sure, that sounds good. Yeah, and I'll have the chat function up as well. If something comes up, I can take a look as well. So
great.
I kind of wanted to start off with, and in regards to the conversation change. So we were talking earlier that it's different now than years before, but there's still so much room that we need to move forward in regards to the area of mental well-being and mental health in sport. And as I was getting ready for today and putting some slides and content together, a lot of times on websites of pretty big organizations in sport, they were saying they're putting mental health first. And I don't know if I'm quite there yet. So I kind of changed, I think we're putting mental health forward, but I wouldn't say we're putting it first. It's one piece that we are now talking about.
Which is wonderful.
Which is absolutely wonderful. And I won't go through old stories of playing an early sports psych, where before in sports psych, people would just leave the room when I was talking. They wouldn't believe it. And this is not that long ago, where now I'm invited, there's people coming in, right? I have clients, I have an app, things have changed. And what I tell athletes, especially the younger ones, that before going into grad school and away from playing, I just thought people they just had it. They're mentally tough. And until I actually started working with athletes at a high level, I found out that athletes at a high level, they doubt more or the same amount as other people. And I would say more because they have more pressures than most people do. And I think the athletes here can I don't know if there are other jobs where there's as many injuries. There are, trust me. But if you think of jobs, they don't go to the physio or athletic therapist as much as an athlete does. Some athletes retire at the age of 16, 18, 20, like you see figure skaters, sometimes swimmers. They retire very early. Other people don't retire until they're in their 60s and even beyond. So we retire earlier. Pressures, I don't know if, again, I have social media for my company. I'm not getting scrutinized on social media like other people are, right, as athletes. My life today was not recorded, only now, but an athlete's game will be recorded, and there's more data than ever before. Plus, coaches, we love coaches. At the same time, our coaches, they demand things of us. In the workplace, a leader or manager doesn't look over your shoulder and say, go faster, do this play. Will they come in? They sure will. But it's different in sport. So it makes sense that the athletes would experience these aspects of our lives, and maybe even a little bit more than other people, because there's different stats. But I really want to get to these next couple of slides just for our perspective, and just for the young athletes and their parents to keep an open mind to this. I teach about this. So there's two concepts in my classes in abnormal psych that I talk about. I won't get too far into it, but I wanted just to kind of put people's minds and to wrap their minds around this. So there's two concepts. One's called the continuity hypothesis, and the other is called the discontinuity. I will stop right there with it in regards to the names. But continuity in mental health means that people shift from optimal mental health to minimal mental health in their lives. And there's no mental illness with this perspective. We are all very strong. There'll be one day in our lives when we're the strongest. We never pay attention to this, but there's one time, Tammy, in your life and my life and everyone's, where they're the strongest mentally. Who knows when that is? It could be today. It could have been 10 years ago. There's one day when you're mentally the strongest. And there'll be one day in your life when you're mentally at your lowest. But we move somewhere in between. There's no mental illness. We're very strong and we're not as strong. But in North America, we have labels, categories. And I took this, and I love it. They're colleagues of mine, and I'll share the website. The Canadian Centre for Mental Health for Sport is very new, and it's just for athletes. It's out of the University of Ottawa in Ottawa, Ontario. Look at their slide, and it goes from being healthy to injured to ill. So in North America, we look at mental illness as an illness, and that's there's like a discontinuity, like it's you are ill. Whereas a continuity, we're all strong, we're all going to be weak, and we're going to be somewhere in between mostly. But I get the illness and injured part. This is right from their website. These are colleagues of mine. Yeah. So I want us to think about that. It's normal. There's going to be a day in our life when we feel the very best, and there'll be a time in our life when we feel not as good and the very worst. And mostly we're somewhere in between. But here's where this PowerPoint slide is helpful. There is a difference on the right-hand side versus the left-hand side, right? There's more of it, and we'll get to some of the symptoms, characteristics, and it lasts longer, right? So I just want to say that it's normal. Everyone goes through it, but there is a difference between them as well, right? So I think I just wanted to kind of put that out there first, just so people, it is something we all experience, and you will as an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that out there.
And you know, what I want to add is that mental health is something that we all have. Some days are good, some days are not so good. But when our not so good days turn into weeks or months, for some even years, this is when we need to reach out and get some help. Yeah. Because when we're not looking after our mental well-being, yes, it can turn into an illness, because those days have now turned into months.
Yeah, agreed. And that's where both of those slides with information are just very helpful for us to have these conversations, right? But here's the one from the previous one I just put together on its own. These are some of the symptoms and characteristics, and they fall in clinical psych under like mood disorders and anxiety. Like these are the ones that people in the world experience more of, right? And these are the ones that we have to start to consider if we are going to have these conversations, because these are the characteristics, traits, and symptoms that people experience most. So it's nice to be able to focus on these and to see that, okay, am I feeling this way? I think we all feel all of these at one time, but is it excessive and is it longer term? And I think, Tammy, that's what you were saying. That's the difference here.
Yeah, and even when I look at the list here, less talkative, neglecting appearance, changes in appetite, things like this are not even in relation or correlated to mood disorders. When I present information about mental illness or mental wellness, these typically could be warning signs, things to look for. I think the key for everyone here to remember is how long are these things happening, right? Yeah. A few days? Well, there are times every month that I can feel several of these things for a couple of days, but are they lasting a couple of months, several months? There's a difference.
And here's where we have the athlete and we have, and I'll get to this, the athlete support, right? So as it becomes possibly more intense, these symptoms, characteristics, and for length, that people can look at and go, and take this away, and I can send it to people and go, okay, based on how this person usually is, it's gone on a little bit longer. Maybe I should ask some questions. Maybe I should listen to this person. Maybe I should make contact with this person. And I think they are nice ones for the athlete, but also nice for their support network. That if we all are talking a similar language, like you're saying, then we can have these conversations that are more meaningful, that people, the defenses go down and they go, okay, you're right. Let's have a conversation. And I think that's what Bell wants to do. I think others who are pushing forward mental health initiatives, it's all about those conversations, but it has to be about that understanding piece first and before moving forward.
Thank you.
Some reasons why not all athletes go seek help, and there still is this stigma attached. So it's hard. So it's hard years ago. It still is difficult, right? But we want to be able to help the athlete to say, you're not the only one
right,
who feels this way, but we have to be able to understand the reasons why. And then we also have to say, how can I do it differently? Right? And this is just not the athlete, but it's the whole entire support network. It's the coaches, it's the athletic therapist, it's the parent, it's the fan, so the athlete can feel more comfortable. And I mentioned to you that I work at one clinic called the Sports Clinic, and it used to be at the University of Toronto, Mississauga campus in their physical education building. And I still at times work with their swimming team in Mississauga, and the swimming team would train out of that facility, and I would have a clinic there, and I would see people walking in the hallways and they would actually not say anything to me. But then in an hour, they come to my office and say, hey, Peter. And I'm like, I just saw you an hour ago. You have an appointment with me, and then you took a route around me. But that's just the challenges, right? And I think we have to get past these to be able to get people the help that they may deserve, want, appreciate. But as helpers, we understand that it's not always easy to seek that help. All right, so here's where I want to go. Those are just kind of setting the kind of the agenda for us today, but I really want to get to the self-care part and support part. That's where I'm going to go with the rest of this. And Tammy, you said it well, there's no one size fits all for mental health and well-being. But what I do want to put forward, that it has to be planful. You work on it with a plan that is yours. And I think it's never too early to start with that plan, even if we're feeling well and we're on that left-hand side of that earlier PowerPoint slide. So I'm going to talk about self-care and then also various supports. But go ahead, Tammy, I cut you off.
I think that's a great point, because I'll tell you this, usually when people are feeling low or at their lowest, this is the most difficult time for them to reach out and get support for various different reasons. So I actually like your idea. I've never heard of, in the 11 years that I've been doing this idea of a support plan. I've never heard that. So I'm really enjoying that. Planning something for worst case scenarios, like we would plan for an accident or an injury or, life insurance, these little things. So thank you. This is
so well said.
Great.
So well said. I'm just going to pick the pieces that you mentioned that fit so nicely. And I'm glad I have you here and you're here, we're here together, is that one, that it is something that is supportive, but it's one where someone is not feeling well. So even think of us physically when we're not feeling well. And my son's not feeling well today. He was just in the room before we started, and you just see it in him. Physically, he's sick. His head is down, his shoulders down, he's holding his chest. And when someone's not feeling well mentally, they're also struggling. So what we are going to bring forward is the most challenging when we are feeling this way. However, the parts that we're going to bring forward are at times could be something that helps you feel better. Just like almost like a medicine, right? It could be, let's get you some Advil. Let's get you some cough medicine. Let's get you something, electrolytes. That's what these are for. But I do want to put forward that it's very challenging. But if we're planful, we may be able to shorten the intensity and duration of what we are feeling. So again, thank you for being here to be able to bring those parts forward. What I'm going to focus on, physical, mental, emotional, and social. Those would be those self-care, supportive pieces that we can think about. So when we need them, we can go to them. Because we almost like we've practiced them before. That's like going to a game but not practicing a drill or a skill. Perform it in the game, but don't practice it. It often doesn't happen. Same for those mental skills. All right, here's the first one. It's physical self-care, right? And here's where it's your recipe. So when people are not feeling well physically, being out at times, but I'm going to highlight the one part, being out in nature is really important. And there's research to back this up, and quite a bit of research now, that if you are not feeling well physically, getting up when you don't feel well and going for a walk outside is very important. And for a couple of my clinical clients who have had concussions in the past, we say, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk in the park if you feel comfortable, because and talk, yeah. Right? So sometimes, and even with my students, right, we're not there right now, we're coming back to campus very soon. At times I say, when they're stressed out, it's like, should we go to your office? I go, if you feel comfortable, let's go for a walk on campus.
Yeah,
right.
I like that idea. There's actually, you can, for those of you who are on, you can actually go online and Google walk and talk. There have been studies done on the effectiveness of it. And I will add is there are also studies that show that physical activity a few times a week can have the same effect as an antidepressant.
Oh, yeah, those are the ones where you go, here's a research study, here's another one. I teach an exercise in sports psychology class, one class, that's all I give them. Here's another one, here's another one. There's hundreds of research studies on that. Here's one more from this PowerPoint slide, and then I'll get to the emotional and spiritual one. And I don't know if the group has a dietitian. At times I work with dietitians and do presentations with them. There are certain foods that a dietitian or someone in nutrition will put forward that is fortifying your mental health. And again, all the walk outside for this long, work on your sleep, these are proven things. In your time of need, these could be what gets you back to where you want to be mentally and physically quicker. It sounds so simple, but you have to plan for it. Again, everyone's recipe's a little bit different.
Can we talk about, before we go to the next slide, you have there going to bed on time. So I'm going to say that I am a parent. I have 4 teenagers in this house, and it is a nightly struggle to try and get anybody to bed at a decent hour. And there are nights where I'm falling asleep before them because, you know, I can't stay up till the crack of dawn anymore. What can we say about that? What can you say or suggest to
I think
all
that
the players?
That routine is very helpful. And again, we're going to look at a lot of athletes who are here want to get to the next level. And if it is college or minor pro or pro, you don't want to wait until you get there to try to figure it out. And all the physiologists or all the people in strength and conditioning who track data, they always, and to me, and against a few of them, will complain when they track athletes' sleep data. I have a good colleague, friend of mine from York University who does this, and it says it upsets him. Like I do therapy sessions just for him and his groups on sleep. I can't get them to go to bed, even though the data says it. This is where the young athlete has to believe that proper sleep, there's just too much research to support. It's almost when it's too late, right? When the pros, the minor pros, the colleges, they'll really stress this. And if you're not getting it, then sometimes there are consequences to not getting it, from injury to not playing. So you just want to get into those routines, those habits, right? So, and to make it something that is very systematic. So the professionals that I work with, they don't change their sleeping habits just because it's a big game. Oh, I should get 2 more hours. No, it's very regular and routine in regards to what they do. So it's little things, right? It's little things that you can take and say, all right, maybe I can do this. Every little bit.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Here's the emotional and spiritual one, and I'll kind of go through it. I think these are important. I'll let people pick and choose. The first one, I never thought years ago I would tell athletes or someone was to tell me to keep a journal of gratitude. The link between gratitude and resilience is extraordinary in regards to the research. And I have my athletes keep a gratitude journal or to write on their phone. And they do this multiple times per week. And if they don't, then I don't like it. And I say, well, why didn't you? And I often tell them 3 things. 3 things after every practice. 3 things before practice. What are you grateful for? What do you have gratitude for? And if you want to work on resilience, was one of the greatest mental skills to perform, that's a really nice opportunity, is to keep what are you grateful for? Number 2, you don't have to be artistic to go through this, but it could be just trying to be more creative. It could be writing. It could be drawing. It could be sketching. It could be making a playlist in regards to music. Mindfulness apps, some that are helpful. Calm, Headspace is another one. Those are ones that you could kind of download and listen to. Again, it takes work. It won't be ones that you are going through meditation for half hour, an hour. It might be 5 minutes, might be moving on to 10 minutes. And the second to last one, but the last one, at times, prayer, writing a prayer down, or again, you don't have to be religious to then pray. And a lot of athletes, and it's mostly the higher level ones, I'll be honest, the pros and the high amateurs that go to world champion, they do a lot of praying. And I know they're very religious, but when I listen to them and go, that's the recipe. That's the recipe. And they tell me their prayers. And I go, thank you. Like, it's incredible. Like, you wouldn't think this in sport, but the great ones in sport, they do this. It's incredible. I wouldn't have thought this years and years ago in regards to what they do.
Yeah, you know, I will say or add to that, when I started out speaking and talking about mental health, prayer wasn't something that was in my list of things to do for self-care. But as time passed, I always had this, you know, one individual in my workshops who would say, hey, you know, my faith has helped me through crisis. And so after a few sessions and after different people telling me the same thing, it really doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter if you are praying to God or praying to whomever. Just the idea of having faith in something goes a long way.
It's almost like, and at times with certain clients, I say, we call them anchors. It's something to keep you present, right? Because in sport, and I think a lot of young athletes, a lot of times we're moving forward a lot, great speeds. Then a lot of athletes go back to the past. And it's very hard to stay present. Right? It's very hard. And I will bring forward as a challenge to people, try to stay present and not move forward, what we had to do, and then what we've done in the past. And you hear a lot in sport now is like, stay present, stay grounded, stay in the moment. But when you actually have to do it, it's very challenging. And for some athletes, that prayer part is very important for them to stay present.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, here's the next one. And this one takes a little bit of work too. So the social self-care piece, I often tell athletes, you have to work through your network that you have to figure out who you need. Because we often think, and again, as a parent, I have two 12-year-olds, and I talk to them about this, like your mother and your father are different supports for you. And they're twins. And for one, it might be one for one and something different for the other.
Yeah.
And I often tell athletes, like, you have to figure out who your support is, who are you going to go to for the emotional part, who are you going to go to for the informational part, who are you going to go for the person to show you the information, because it's not always the same person. It's not always mom. It's not always coach, right? It's this person for this person. So you have to actually seek out your network, because those people just won't come to you. They're just not going to look at you and go, what do you need? It's often when you're not feeling well and you tell them, they go, what do you need? Like my son who's sick today. I tell him today, what do you need? Because he's feeling sick. But we have to do this in a much more proactive way. Also, from this slide that we're on, there are times during our year that there are challenges, right? There are times, like we circled, that was the day that I didn't make the team. That was the day that so-and-so this happened to them. This is the day that I was not able, I'm not able to hang out with my teammates anymore, right? There are moments in the year for all of us that are tougher than others. So I think that's important. If we have those moments in our year, that's when we can be more proactive. And that's okay. Reach out with the text, with the Zoom call, with the phone call, to be able to reach out, because that is your important time during the year.
Yeah, and if I can add, we want to teach our players to reach out, but I also want to mention to the parents, to the coaches, to players' friends, if you recognize that something is different, I'm not going to say off, I'm not going to say down, something is different in a player, in a friend, in a coworker, I think it's our duty, it's our obligation as well to check in. If I notice something different with you, Peter, and you are a friend of mine, you know what? I'm going to call you up. I'm going to text and say, how's it going?
Yeah.
Right?
But I'm going to add one more piece of this, Tammy, is that formal part to it. So I took this, colleagues of mine, work with them at times. It's a Center for Mental Health in Sport, and it's from their website. But here's all generally in sport with the athlete, all the people who are around them in their network. But it's identifying even the team to say, this is the person to go to, or these are the people to go to because, and it might be the mental performance consultant, but not every team has one. So maybe it's the athletic therapist or the sports science support.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is, Tammy, the counselor who is a part of the team. Maybe it's the coach who people go to, and it might not even be the head coach that people go to, right? So I think it's from the athlete perspective, we had to figure out who's going to be our support, and from the organization or team, who's going to be the support person, so everyone knows. The more that people are aware, the greater the understanding. And I think this PowerPoint and that image on the right-hand side is very important to take away, just for planning for the individual as the athlete, but also for the entire group of individuals.
Yeah, and I hope and I know that Milton Magic is definitely going to take this seriously and come up with an action plan for the next year.
And I've been going on. So this is my final one. This is a little bit more specific to myself and my group. It's called Headset. I mentioned it's an application we created a few years ago. It's used with sports teams, organizations around the world, primarily North American athletes and organizations that use it, but there's quite a few other countries that people have been using it, can use it. You can go to our website. You can get it on Google Play in the App Store. The reason why we created it is because we want to give athletes access, because we didn't have it. And now with all of our technology, it's almost like, why not? Why don't we tap into this? Because it's there. And we focus on different mental skills, but we focus more on 5. And I'm going to share with you through our research at Headset 3, athletes at the highest level score lowest on stress management, resilience and confidence, awareness and motivation. Out of the 5, they score higher. So those are the 3. And I often I try not to decrease the value of Headset for these 5. They're all important and they're all connected. But through our research, thousands of athletes, those are the 3 scales. We work on more. And they're high level, Olympic athletes, pro athletes. I can't tell you who uses them, but anyone can get it. And there are some names that you go, oh, awesome. like good for you. And this is the data that we're collecting, because it's all data driven. But as an athlete, I would focus on those 3, and through Headset, those are the 3, we call them pillars, that athletes work on the most.
All right, so if parents or players or coaches, want to download this app, they just have to go on their app section on their phone and type in Headset.
You got it. We have a 30-day free trial. Take a look. If people want to use it for more, we can talk. We use it with teams as well. It's all data driven, and there's machine learning. So a person is not there, even though we created it, people created it. We have all these algorithms that no one goes through the same. So no 2 athletes will go through Headset exactly the same, which is actually really, really, really cool, because just like you would with strength and conditioning or physical, you wouldn't go through learning skills in soccer the exact same way. The defenders work on something different than the goalies, than the strikers and midfielders. So same thing mentally. Here's some other ones. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. If you join up, you'll get our newsletter. So we're active on social media, showing different parts of our product and service. And here's the final one, right? And on the right-hand side is kind of what we talked about, right? So you build the mental strength. It could be through Headset. It could be through support. It could be through a book. But then we go on that right-hand side. So if you are not feeling well, it's early recognition of the signs and symptoms. And then next, getting the support, right? So these 3 pillars kind of, they go well together in regards to a progression from what we've been talking about. And on the left-hand side are some helpful links. That one is the Center for Mental Health in Sport, University of Ottawa in Ottawa, Ontario. The other one's CAMH, the Center for Mental Health and Addiction. Someone on the chat mentioned Kids Help Phone. That's there for live chats. BetterHelp as well is a nice website for people to go through. And there's various crisis lines, but this is one. The Canadian Crisis Hotline is also a nice support system for people. But again, it could be within your own network of coaches, friends, family, school sites, counselors.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. So I want you to stay on the line, because what I want to do next is I want to bring Allison on. So I got some feedback. I'm just going to ask everyone to mute yourselves. So I'd like to introduce Allison Beaumont. She is a Milton Youth Soccer Club alumni. Where are you, Allison? There you are. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's, you know what? It's been a great day so far. Love to see the smile on your face. You know what? I'm going to dive right in. So you are at Southern New Hampshire University.
Yes, yeah, Southern New Hampshire. Yeah.
Okay. And you used to play for Milton.
Yeah, I played for Milton for a lot of my club career, most of it. I also I coached for a little bit with some of the guys that are on here. So great to see all of you guys.
That's awesome. What position do you play?
I'm a midfielder.
You're a midfielder. All right. And how has life been living away from home?
Well, I mean, being across borders with COVID has been very interesting, to say the least. But it's been good. And we've managed it. It's been nice to expand my territories, I guess.
Yeah. How long have you been there?
So the current school I'm at, I've been for just over 6 months probably, and my previous school, I was there for about 2 years.
Okay. So what's the plan?
For the future, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 more years of eligibility for NCAA soccer left, so I'm going to graduate in December of 2023 after I finish a 5th season. So that's the current plan. After that, we'll have to see.
Okay. And, we're talking about mental health and resilience. Peter was talking about the challenges or the different challenges that athletes experience. Did any of the things that Peter mentioned resonate with you? Did he say some specific things that you're like, wow, that's exactly how I felt or dealt with?
Yeah, definitely. I actually was so engaged in the presentation because so much of it, was familiar or stuff that we've talked about. My school right now that I'm at, I'm fortunate that we have a lot of discussions about mental health, and I have a lot of resources around me. So, there was a couple things that he hit like right on the head for me. Using your resources, talking to your coaches, if there's talking to your friends, talking to counselors, whatever you may have available to you. We talk about that kind of stuff a lot and taking away the stigma from that. I also was really nodding my head along when he was talking about, or the both of you were talking about, how confidence and mental health is just a constant, something that you have to work on all the time.
Mm-hmm. And have there been any situations where, he was talking about the continuum, where, some days are good, some days are not so good. Where have there been moments in your life? And I'm going to suggest yes, because we're all human beings, but can you tell us about a time where you were feeling low and you reached out for that support?
Yeah, absolutely. Just this past season, I came from, a school. The reason I transferred is because I was in a difficult situation at my old school. I've come to a new one, which is a much better situation. But even in the successes that I've had in the past season, I've gone through ups and downs with confidence and with mental health. And I'm fortunate that in this situation, I was able to reach out to, it happened to be, my coaches in this instant. And they were so receptive and helpful that I was able to, get through that situation and balance out confidence and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And I'm really grateful. Peter talked about things that you're grateful for. I'm grateful that you're here to share with us, because I think that it's so important for everyone to realize and appreciate that we are not in this alone. And those days when we don't feel so great, it is those conversations with people that care for us and support us that are going to make a difference. So thank you for sharing. What have you learned from these, I'm going to call them negative situations?
Yeah, well, I'll go into one that I experienced. So before I got to Southern New Hampshire, I spent 2 years at the University of Toledo, which was, it's a D1 program out of Ohio. And at that program, one thing that I really dealt with was going from kind of having a regular playing time at my club, where, you always kind of knew how you were going to factor in to the game, to going to a completely irregular schedule. So I would start some games, I would play not at all in some games. Sometimes I would sub on and you never knew. So in that situation, I struggled because we went when I tried to use my resources, like we were talking about, they were not receptive to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I decided to make, the change. I'm not sure if I might be going off track, not answering
No.
your question.
No, you're answering my question. So I would have never even thought of that. Going from what I'm hearing you say is playing all the time to going to college, university level and not getting the same play time. I'm going to guess that that affected maybe your confidence. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, when I tried to address it, like we've talked about, using whatever you have around you to try to bring your confidence up, it didn't work for me in that situation. My resources were not as receptive. So making that change helped me get out of that situation. Now I'm in a better one. Yeah, so that was yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad. And I think what I'm going to stress here is that when we're talking about supports, and I'll use an example of therapy, you may choose to seek a therapist and talk to somebody outside of your circle, which is a great idea for everyone. However, you're not always going to connect or get what you need from these individuals. So I want you to remember this. If you seek help, and the person in front of you, after a few tries, I'm going to suggest give people a chance. But if it's not working for you, if you are leaving sadder than you went in, or you don't feel lighter when you leave, then it's time to switch it up and try and find somebody else that is going to support you. Okay. And I can share this from personal experience. I remember talking to a therapist going back 11 years. And every time I went to go and see this individual, I swear I got a book of quotes. And every time I left, I just shrugged my shoulders and I thought, you know what? If I wanted a quote of the day, I'll go to Indigo or I'll buy a book. So I decided to leave, venture out, find somebody else. And then the next person I talked to about what I was going through, you know what? We hit it off and it was good conversation. And after I left, I just felt better. So I know that I made the right choice. So Allison, kudos to you. We're so glad to have you. I'm going to move on just for sake of time to our friend Noah. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. So Noah, from what I have here, you are in Oakland and you're attending the Oakland University, correct?
I haven't attended yet, but just recently I signed my national letter of intent and I'm supposed to be playing there in the fall of 2022.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you must be over the moon, I'm guessing. That's every player's dream, I guess. So you just signed. So what does that look for you? You're going to be moving over the summertime, I'm guessing?
Yeah, so we haven't really discussed dates yet, but generally they try to get me down, or they try to get athletes down sometime in August for preseason so they can kind of get up to shape, put on some mass, and then hopefully if things go well, I can play during the season.
Awesome. So what position do you play?
I play center back.
Center back. Awesome. So let's talk about this entire process. So for those of you who don't know, I used to work at CMHA, which is the Canadian Mental Health Association, and I was the education lead and mentor for the Mississauga Steelheads. So I did mental health training for the players, coaches, and staff. And I've talked to a number of the players over the past 2 years during COVID, and I didn't realize the stress that a lot of them were experiencing because they were losing that play time to showcase their skill. How did that affect you?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely difficult because I've been at Milton since I was 4. So from 2008 till now, I've been playing at Milton all my life. And to kind of work my entire life, and my goal has been to go Division I and hopefully professional to the next level. And to kind of work my entire life just for COVID to happen, to shut down the border, so I can't really get in front of the coaches that I've worked so hard to kind of impress. It was definitely difficult and upsetting. Thankfully, there was like a little gap in between the COVID waves and I was able to get down in front of the Oakland coach, and I guess I impressed.
That's amazing. So I mean, what I'm hearing is you kind of got lucky because you snuck in there in between these shutdowns. Tell us, what were some of the emotions you were feeling before you got accepted to go to Oakland?
Well, honestly, I wasn't very confident because it's already difficult enough. Like I had been reading articles about American players or American high school players going to the Division I level, and the statistics were pretty low.
Okay.
And then mixed with the COVID lockdowns and the fact that I'm Canadian and either I have to go to the States or they have to come here, it made my situation a lot more difficult. And honestly, there was a lack of belief in myself, and I wasn't sure if I really could go to the next level. But
Okay.
My coach, Coach Shane, who's now the technical director of Milton, he was very instrumental in kind of keeping that belief within me. And whenever mentally I was down or I didn't think I was good enough, I would reach out to Shane, and he would kind of give me that reassurance that, look, you'll get your break, something will happen, just keep working.
Mm-hmm. Because what can happen with all of us in these difficult situations is we could give up.
Yeah, for sure.
But you didn't give up.
Oh man.
And aren't you glad that you didn't?
Yeah, I was pretty low during the first lockdown because honestly, like we hadn't trained in like I think like 6-7 months, and that's when I was like the most out of shape, and I was really questioning if this was something I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very grateful for having such supportive parents, a supportive coach that really encouraged me to keep going, and I guess it paid off in the end.
Yeah, you're lucky, and it's an awesome situation. I can say that over the past 2 years, even with my son's team, he's on the U15 team, I've seen a change in the team itself. Some people have left, and I really feel, I've talked to Shane about this, I've talked to Alex about this, and Coach Mark about this. You know, it's a shame to see people who love the sport lose that interest because they're at home. And let's be honest, we're all online right now, and it's wonderful, but at the same time, it's exhausting, right? Being online all day long, attending meetings on Zoom is exhausting. Did you feel that exhaustion?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, thankfully we're back in school right now. But right after the Christmas break, when we had that kind of 2-3 week online period, it was just so draining because again, we'd have to wake up, stare at our computer screens all day. And then finally, when I would get my break, I couldn't go see my friends, my teammates, we couldn't train. And so we're just pretty much stuck at home. And that does take a toll because it's not what I'm used to. And especially during that time, the whole Oakland situation was still up in the air. So that just added kind of extra stress on top of already being at home and online.
Yeah, you know, as a parent, I can tell you, I even miss watching practices. I loved watching my son's team play. I love watching the games. It's exciting, and it just makes me happy. So tell me, during this difficult time, during the stressors of COVID, and especially during this recruitment time, tell me 1 or 2 things that you learned and that you'd like to share with the other players on here.
I learned that, and I know it sounds cliche, but really use the resources you have around you. So I'll share a story. There was a time, I want to say last summer, I believe, or the summer before. So it was still COVID. I picked up a pretty severe ankle injury where I damaged some ligaments training, and I was sidelined for about 3 months, I believe. And throughout that time, I was watching my teammates train. My coach was bringing in new players, and that kind of frustrated me a little bit because I knew I couldn't be out there, and I was a little bit envious. And it was almost a situation of, I was like, oh, why does that have to be me, kind of thing. But I really learned through that situation, through being injured, that reaching out to my coach, telling my parents how I feel instead of balling my fist and trying to take it myself, it really kind of gives you that reassurance that, look, take your time. When you're ready, you can come back, and that people aren't just going to give up on you because you have a difficult situation, right? Use the resources around you, and they'll help you back in a way where you'll succeed.
That's great. I'm really proud of you for reaching out, using the resources. And what I really like as a mom, I like the fact that you reached out to your parents and told them how you feel. Because if there's something I remind my kids, and I'm going to share with everybody here, we are human beings. We feel. We are not robots. And it is okay to be angry and sad and pissed off. And like you said, you were feeling maybe a little bit envious because other players were playing and you were sitting on the sidelines. It's okay to feel those things, but I think the important thing here, and what I've heard you say, is that you talked about how you felt. You were able to get things off of your chest, and then that took you to a place where you could focus and move forward.
Definitely.
All right. So it's 7:56. We are going to wrap things up because I know, and the club knows, that everyone is busy. We got dinner on the go, things to do tonight. I'm going to share, and I'm going to wrap up with some resources. I know that Peter shared some resources. A quick question for Coach Shane. Is there going to be a recording of this that maybe the parents and the players can get access?
Yes, we're recording it now. I will have it. I should have it uploaded some point tomorrow, probably onto our website at some point, somewhere on our website. But I'll send out an email to the members so they can access it.
Awesome. All right. So before we wrap up, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Noah and to Allison and to Peter. It was great to meet you all. A few resources that I want to share with you that are free, and several of them are available online for you to access at your own leisure. First one here is called Bounce Back. It's a CBT based, so a cognitive behavioral therapy based program. You have to be 15 or older to access this program. And essentially you set up an account, you are sent workbooks, you are signed up with a coach online, and then you get to watch videos and participate in workshops. This is one service that is available for free. The website is listed here, bouncebackontario.ca. And I want you to share these resources with family and friends. They don't have to be in Milton. Bounce Back is available for everyone across Canada. Together All is an anonymous peer support website where you can go and talk with other people who may be experiencing what you're feeling or experiencing. Like I said, it is anonymous, and there are self-guided courses that you can access. For the parents on the line, I want you to take a moment and visit wheretostart.ca. When you go on this website, you will gain access to groups, webinars, walk-in counseling for parents, for youth. They also have a crisis line where you can call and speak to a crisis worker. So wheretostart.ca. This is a new program that started throughout the pandemic, and it's for the Black, African, and Caribbean community. You can call and seek support. The times are very specific, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the phone number is listed there, and you will get this in the presentation later on. For those of you who are going to post-secondary, so Noah and Allison, who's already there, and for those parents who have children who are in post-secondary already, Good to Talk is a free, confidential, 24/7, 365 days a week support group. You can dial the 1-800 number and speak to somebody on the phone, but you can also text, which is pretty amazing. Don't forget Kids Help Phone. So Kids Help Phone has been around for a very long time, but what is awesome now in 2022 is they've bumped up their game. You can text them, you can phone them. They also have access to live chat. Wellness Together was put together because of COVID. This was developed by the federal government. You can visit this website here, ca.portal.gs, and you will have access to wellness self-assessments, self-guided courses. There are apps that you can download. There's group coaching, community support, and counseling by text or phone that is free of charge. Free to Talk is another volunteer-led organization. These are the days that you can pick up the phone and talk to somebody. What I will tell you about this organization is everyone that answers the phone, they're volunteering their time, but they do have the education and mental health background behind them. So we have psychologists, therapists, counselors who are volunteering their time on those specific days. MYSC is a Center for Diverse Women and Families. They're located in Mississauga. They do and they are taking appointments for individuals, couples, and families that need counseling. So these are some of the resources I wanted to share with you. Please feel free to reach out. I'm actually, if you don't mind, I am going to put my email address in the chat box. If you have any questions related to training, speaking, mental health resources, please feel free to connect with me. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Shane, did you want to end with any words?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to thank all of you, all four of you, for joining us, Noah, Tammy, Peter, and Allison. It's been refreshing for me, very educational. Tammy, Peter, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your resources with myself and with the group. Noah and Allison, thanks so much for sharing your experiences as young athletes. I think it's important for us to share. I think it resonates differently when it comes when information comes from a young athlete to another young athlete. It hits differently, if for lack of a better term. So I thank you all for all of your contributions tonight. Tammy, I support, the club supports mental health as a pillar for all of our athletes, and by extension, if we have parents here that need help and resources, we encourage you to reach out to the club through either myself, and we'll get you in touch with Tammy, or you have her email here. I will also share, when we upload it, I'll share Peter, your contact, and Tammy, yours as well, as a resource. But I'm excited for what we did today, and hopefully we can build on this and really kind of push, Peter, to your point, push mental health forward, to be a bigger part of the picture for all of us as athletes, parents, just kind of community individuals. So thank you all so much for helping contribute to Milton Magic and our Bell Let's Talk event. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Great.
you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good night, everyone.